Everyone that cosmetically altered their face, now we're in a backlash to that. Now I find it like so refreshing to just see a normal person's face. Like, this is what I love about the show My Brilliant Friend on HBO. Like, all the actors' faces, I'm like, what a great face. We don't have those faces in America, because in America, all our actors, like, I cannot watch Nicole Kidman anymore. I cannot watch her face. Her face looks so strange to me. It's so distracting. So we don't have real faces anymore. So I think actually your real face on camera, on TikTok, and you just talking like you normally would, is actually refreshing to people. It's like it's almost like the counterculture to what we're getting in a Nicole Kidman movie.
Welcome to the Unspeakable podcast. I'm your host, Meghan Daum. My guest is no stranger to the podcast, Leigh Stein. She is a novelist, a poet, a book coach, manuscript coach, publishing guru, expert on book talk. Yes, that is book talk, TOK. And she is here to talk about the state of the publishing industry. She checks in every so often to talk about that. And specifically, Leigh is going to be talking about a webinar she's about to teach for the Unspeakeasy called How to Get a Book Deal the Easy Way. This is a premium episode for the podcast. If you are not yet a paying subscriber, you're going to hear a little bit. And then I would invite you to join our listener community if you are not already. And if you want to take the class, go to theunspeakeasy.com. I'll remind you of that again at the end of this interview. So enjoy. Here's Leigh Stein. Welcome to the Unspeakable podcast. I'm your host.
Thank you,
Meghan Daum. That wasn't for you, Leigh. That was for everybody else. We're doing it differently now. This is a premium episode, so I'm welcoming the listeners, and now I'm going to welcome you, the guest, Leigh Stein. Welcome back.
Hello. Thank you.
Great to see you. Great to see you, because now we're doing on video. Finally got my act together, and here we are. So I always love talking with you. I like the idea of you popping in annually or so. And we're going to talk about the webinar that you're doing for the Unspeakeasy School of Thought, How to Get a Book Deal the Easy Way. So I want to hear how that's going to go. But first, let's just talk about how you're feeling about things. How are you feeling about the book business, about writing and reading?
Well, there's an interesting article in The Atlantic, I think last week, that a lot of people were talking about, and it was written by a young associate editor who I think is just a few years out of college herself. And basically she wrote that young adults are showing up at college having little to no experience reading entire books, that they know how to read, but they haven't read books before. And it opens with this anecdote of a Columbia University professor saying a young student came to his office hours because she was struggling, because in high school she had never been assigned to read a complete book. And now she's at Columbia University. So I think that's just kind of shocking. And I have a couple reactions to this, because on the one hand, like, I'm on TikTok and I see young adults reading books every day. Like, I see the voracious readers, and they do exist, reading novels, reading for pleasure, reading for fun. So I do know that young people are reading, but are all young people reading? I don't know.
Mm-hmm. Okay. I'm getting like a weird flashing things. Okay. I'm just going to pretend that's not happening. Okay.
I see the weird flashing thing too.
You do? Okay. As long as there's enough that we can pull out a clip. Okay. Well, you sent me some interesting statistics. You said that the Association of American Publishers released data showing that, basically this past summer has been the almost the best July ever. There were $705 million in sales of books.
Yeah. So 2021, during the pandemic, that's when book sales were the strongest of all time since they ever started tracking them. So in 2021, sales were 705 million. And then the report that they just released this week, the number is 687 million, which is almost the best. So I think people are buying books. Sales across the board are up. Adult book sales are up. Audiobooks are up 60%. So a lot of people are listening to books, and there's a lot of discourse on TikTok about whether listening to books, quote unquote, counts. And a lot of TikTok creators are very defensive and want people to feel like it's allowed and it does count to listen to audiobooks. So if you're an audiobook listener, you get to count that as reading.
Yeah, we need to be audiobook inclusive. So, but are audiobooks outselling print books yet?
No, they're not outselling print books, but they're like surpassing ebooks in terms of popularity. So audiobooks have become, I think, more popular than ebooks. And for a couple years there, nonfiction sales were really down compared to fiction, because partly because I think the success of romance, like romance novels are really, we have to thank the romance novelists for like supporting the rest of us. But these recent numbers say that both adult fiction and nonfiction sales rose. So there are some nonfiction books that people are reading and buying. So this is all good news for us writers, I think.
Okay, and they are buying actual books. So even so actual physical books are still outselling ebooks
or audiobooks. Yes.
Or audio. Okay, well that's news to me because I was thinking otherwise. Okay. All right. So why are writers so complaining all the time that nobody wants their book, their agents won't return their calls, they're giving up, everybody's too stupid to read? Is this fake news?
It's very confusing because I feel like we're getting a lot of mixed messages because it's like it's a harder time than ever to be an author today. It's harder than ever to sell a book, but someone's buying some books because millions of copies of books are being sold. So is it a matter of certain books just outperforming everyone else? Like Colleen Hoover, who I think I talked about the last time I visited you, like It Ends With Us just hit 10 million in sales. Like that book has sold 10 million copies. It sold an additional 800,000 just when the movie came out.
Okay.
So she's selling millions and millions of books while other writers are probably selling less than 2,000 copies. So I think what's getting harder is to actually break out and have a hit.
Okay. So this is a winner take all economy, like everything else.
Yeah.
This is like, people saying the economy's never been better. And yet people can't afford anything and feel like it's never been worse.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So I guess like consumer sentiment of the writers is that
yes,
the book economy is not working for them.
Okay. And is that because of genre stuff? Like these are ostensibly literary writers who are doing a lot of the complaining.
I think so. I mean, that's the world that I'm in. I'm in like the literary upmarket fiction land. And I think people just feel gloomy. I think there's a lot of resentment about publishing. And from the writer's point of view, it looks like the marketing and publicity teams at the publishers, it looks like they're choosing which books are going to get the muscle behind them, right? Like they're just publishing too many books. That's what Kathleen Schmidt would say. She's a publicist on Substack. She's like, publishers need to publish fewer books and put more resources behind each one. But instead, they're publishing thousands of books a year. They're choosing a few to really put muscle behind. And I think they're putting the muscle behind the books that they think are the most likely to break out.
Right.
So it's a self-fulfilling prophecy.
And are they just not paying big advances to the other books? It's just kind of like a throwaway.
I mean, no one will say this to me on the record, but it seems to me like, yeah, they're allocating resources based on the advance that they paid up front. And so that's why agents, for multiple reasons, agents try to get the biggest advance possible so they can get the most support for the launch. But I guess my whole approach to writing into my career is like to think about what I actually have control over and then try to learn that and try to learn marketing and try to build my own audience and do basically what you're doing to reach my audience directly, because I've never been the belle of the ball who got all the publishing resources thrown at her book.
Well, even if you get them, they don't always work. I mean, that's even worse. It's like all dressed up and the ball is canceled. So yeah.
Right.
All right. Well, so let's just talk about your class. So how to get a book deal the easy way. This is going to be a webinar. It's a one-time thing. Anybody can sign up, unlimited. And if you are not, if you can't make the actual class, you get a recording of the webinar.
Yes.
Is that right? Okay. So you don't want to give away the store. You're not going to tell everybody right now how to get a book deal the easy way, but just give us like a little hint.
Yeah. So basically, it's a class on how to come up with a strong concept for your book. So if you've ever been at a party or a family gathering and someone's like, how's the book coming? What's it about? And you're stumbling through how to explain it, or like you can't explain it in a short way, or you find yourself in a situation where you can only explain your book if you're reading from a paper, like you're reading a description that you wrote down, that means you probably have a difficult time articulating the concept, or you might not even know what the concept is for your book. Like I find that literary authors, literary fiction writers, like when they're describing their novels, they're like, it's about family and the prices you pay. And you're like, okay, but what is it about? Like it's so abstract. So I think literary writers have the tendency of emphasizing the themes.
Yes.
They don't really know how to describe the plot of their literary novel, but even literary novels like have tropes. Romance novels have tropes like this is a love triangle, or this is an enemies to lovers. But I think literary novels have tropes too. You could say this is about complicated mother-daughter relationships, or this is a family saga. Like there are certain keywords that in a reader's mind are like, oh yeah, I love those kinds of books. I love family sagas. So the whole point of the class is to get you to stop thinking of your book from your own point of view and how your life is going to change when Oprah picks it, and to think of your book from your reader's point of view and what do they get out of it and how does it touch on things that they are already familiar with or that they already love, so that when you pitch it, they're like, oh my God, that's just like that other thing that I love.
Okay, but still saying this is about complicated mother-daughter relationships, that's not a story. That is a theme.
That is a theme. Right. But at least it's like something that is more concrete than like family. It's like we're trying to get more and more specific.
Right. No, of course.
And I'm also like trying to teach literary writers how to describe the plots of their novels, which is they're just suffering. I'm teaching a separate plot class right now, and we just had a class last night. And it was just, people are suffering. Like I said, can you introduce yourself to the class by describing the plot of your premise of your novel? And it's really challenging. It's really challenging.
When you were writing Self-Care, which I see in the background there, and I just love it. As you know, I love this novel. Were you able to describe the plot before you started writing it?
No, I think for me, it's like I'm not a strict plotter, but I'm also not a strict pantser. You've heard these terms, right?
Pantser? No, I don't know what that is.
Okay, pantser is the opposite of a plotter. So a plotter plots their whole novel before they start writing, and a pantser is figuring out the book as they go.
Pancer?
No, like the seat of your pants.
Oh, okay. Pantser, a pantser.
Yeah, so these are like how novelists identify as either plotters or pantsers. Oh. It's a little corny. I guess I'm both. Like I like a little plot structure, but if I get too much structure, I freak out and I just want to go like play and mess around. So I kind of go back and forth. But like I think when I first started writing Self-Care, I was like inside the girl boss like moment. Like I don't even know that I could have said it was about girl bosses like when I first started it. And I think I remember being at a party and someone asked me what it was about. And I said, it's about sickness in the name of health. And she was like, that's interesting, which like it kind of is, but that doesn't really describe it. And then finally, by the end, my shortest pitch was just like, it's a satire of the wellness industry. And as soon as you say that, like the satire is something people recognize as comedy.
Right.
Though even now, I don't know if everyone, like if I'm at the doctor's office or something, satire, I might say it's a workplace comedy in the wellness industry. There's different ways you can pitch it to different audiences.
Because they don't know what satire means?
Yeah.
I know. I remember, it's so funny with doctors too, because they sometimes try to make small talk and then they go, oh, like you wrote a novel? Is that fiction or nonfiction? Like all the time. Like you're a doctor.
Well, it just happened to me recently. I said, they're like, what do you do? I'm like, oh, I'm a novelist. And he said, self-published. And I just thought, why would I answer that question with novelist if I'm self-published?
Well, some people would. Self-published novelists would have no problem saying that.
I guess.
But it's kind of a microaggression. Or is it? Okay, but let's get to this. A lot of people say you might as well self-publish now because it's the big publishing is like big pharma. And it's an old model and it doesn't work anymore. So what do you say to that?
Well, I think my point of view on self-publishing has changed over the last several years. Like, I started doing book coaching in like 2017, and I would have never recommended a client self-publish. Like, I didn't know anything about it, and I really looked down my nose at it. I think probably because I was like, I don't know. Like, I think you and I both, like, there's a certain prestige that comes from being published. Like, this is part of the game that we want to win at. We want to win that little, what's it called? A colophon?
Oh,
on the
you
site.
mean the publisher's little imprimatur?
Yeah.
Little.
Yeah.
Yeah, of course.
Like, that's something you want to win in the game. But I think I've become more open-minded about self-publishing, and I've become open-minded about hybrid publishing, which is where what used to be called vanity publishing, but hybrid is like where the author is making a financial investment up front, but the hybrid publisher is providing like professional, high quality production, design, distribution, like you're getting something in return. It's like a in between from just like self-publishing yourself on Amazon and selling to a big five. So I think there's good reasons to just greenlight your own book. Like, if you're like, I'm tired of waiting around, like I really believe in this project.
That was a taste of my conversation with novelist, poet. She's a poet. We didn't even talk about that. Publishing guru and TikTok maven, I guess that's the right word, Leigh Stein. If you want to hear the rest, become a paying subscriber to this podcast. You get all kinds of stuff for that. Go to megandaum.substack.com. If you want to take Leigh's webinar for us at the Unspeakeasy, part of the Unspeakeasy School of Thought, go to theunspeakeasy.com, go to courses, and sign up for How to Get a Book Deal the Easy Way. That's happening on November 14th. It is a one-time thing. It is a webinar. You don't have to apply. You just sign up. I will be back next time with another super nuanced guest. See ya then.